what kept you going with this product as a business if after 4 years you were only earning $1,500 a month, right? Because a lot of people would have just said, okay, maybe this isn't the business or the right business for me, and maybe I need to look at something else because if after all of these years, that's all I can generate from it, maybe that's it. Maybe that's as much as I'm ever going to get from this business. So what kept you going during those 4 years?
It's funny. It's the exact fact that I was making $1,500 a month. That was exciting to me.
Welcome to the Conversion Aid Podcast, where we help software entrepreneurs to take their business to the next level. Each week, we interview proven industry experts who share their strategies and insights to help you create software that sells. Here's your host, Omer Khan.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Conversion Aid Podcast. Firstly, I've got to apologize to you, my listeners. I kicked off 2016 in January with 3 new episodes, and then I didn't publish any new episodes for over the last month. And I'm not happy about that. Last year, I tried to be consistent and get an episode out just about every single week. And I feel like I let you guys and girls down, so I'm sorry for that. I actually got a really bad sinus infection. It was really hard for me to talk. Plus, I didn't think you'd want to hear me interview people talking like this with a blocked nose. Anyway, it just took me a lot longer to recover than I'd expected. And so hopefully we'll get back to a regular schedule from now on. And thank you for the people who reached out to me to find out what was going on and to give me some encouragement and also a gentle kick up the backside to get going with the show again. All right, so today's interview is with a guy who started a SaaS business with almost no money, just his own sweat equity. For the first few years, he worked on that business part-time, and even after 4 years, he was only earning around $1,500 a month in revenue. But he kept going. Today, that business is doing around $70,000 in monthly recurring revenue. And it's possible that this year he's going to hit $1 million in revenue. So it's a great story of a bootstrapped business. But what's even more interesting about this person is that once his business was up and running, he decided to sell his home and most of his belongings and decided to permanently travel around the world with his family. In the last 6 years, they've been to 30 countries. And at the same time, he's been building and growing his business. He has no offices, and his team is made up of people all around the world working from their homes. And he's a really great guy. So I think you're really going to enjoy this interview. Before we get started, if you haven't joined the Conversion Aid community, now is a great time to do that. You'll get notified of new episodes right in your inbox, and it's a great way to learn from successful SaaS founders and entrepreneurs. Just go to conversionaid.com/VIP and enter your email address to join. Okay, let's get on with the interview. Today's guest is the founder of Music Teachers Helper, a SaaS application that helps thousands of music teachers around the world manage their studio. It lets them handle everything from billing and lesson schedules to automatic reminders and even tax reports. I first came across my guest in 2012 when I read his story in a book called The $100 Startup by Chris Guillebeau. He started the business with almost no money in 2004, and within a few years, the business was generating almost $30,000 in monthly recurring revenue. And he's doing even more than that, as we'll sort of come to within the interview. A few years after starting the business, he decided to sell his home and belongings in Utah and moved with his wife and 2 young daughters to Costa Rica, where his third daughter was also born. And in the past 6 years, they've visited over 30 countries while still continuing to build this business. I think you're going to love this story. So today, I'd like to welcome Brandon Pearce. Brandon, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Omer. Happy to be here.
Now, you have been traveling all over the world. I remember when Chris's book first came out and sort of I went over to your blog, pearceonearth.com. And I think at the time you were still in Costa Rica. And so, you've been in kind of all places and Bali and Indonesia, but you're a little bit more local now, right?
Well, for the time being, I'm in Victoria, Canada at the moment. We're really enjoying this part of the world, and we actually plan to spend another 6 months here next year. But we'll be back on the other side of the world in a couple of weeks.
I'm curious, how have your daughters found this experience over the last few years of constantly moving and new places and new people? Do they still love it? Are they getting tired of it?
Yeah, it's all of us love it and get tired of it at different times. So, at the beginning, when it was so novel and we were all just loving it, incredibly enthusiastic about it. Over time, and especially as my daughters have been getting older, my oldest is 12 now, and just wanting more consistent in-person friendships and long-term classes that you kind of have to commit to. It's more, we found a desire to stay longer term in places. So, if we stay just 2 or 3 weeks or a month, it's often, we just feel so rushed and it's not long enough to really get in. So we like at least a few months in a place. We'll be 3 months in New Zealand, starting January this year. And then, like I said, 6 months in Victoria. So hopefully, those longer term stays will give us a chance to kind of settle in. And we're really enjoying the friendships that we're making along the way, even the short term ones. And the kids do stay in touch with their friends a lot through Skype. But we want to stay in places longer.
Do you homeschool the kids, or do you sort of try and kind of get into local schools where you are? How does that sort of work?
Yeah, we do. I guess you could call it a world schooling approach. It's we support our kids in learning the things that they're interested in and passionate about, and just providing them resources to do that. So they use Khan Academy a lot for the basics of math and such. But for example, my oldest loves music, songwriting and singing and guitar and piano, and she's very musical. So we've found a singing and songwriting teacher who she takes weekly lessons from via Skype. And we've been to recording studios, and she's recorded some of her songs and getting ready to put some on iTunes and stuff like that. So we're really excited for her in that way. With our youngest, or our middle child, she's showing more interest in like gymnastics and that type of thing. So that's one reason we kind of want to find a place to stay for at least a few months so we can get into a kind of program there. So yeah, the more fast-paced travel is fun but exhausting at times. But I think over time we still want to travel. I think we'll always travel, but looking for a little bit more of a home base to keep coming back to.
So let's talk about business. Now, I like to start by asking my guests about, a favorite quote or sort of just what drives and motivates them. So what gets you out of bed every morning to do what you do?
I just wake up when the sun comes up. But I love creating things and thinking about, what my creation is going to turn into. Whether it's writing, I've been enjoying writing and working on my website a lot these days, and seeing how my business is growing. As for a quote that kind of goes along with that, it's a very famous one by Howard Thurman. Don't ask what the world needs, ask what makes you come alive, and go do that, because what the world needs is people who have come alive.
I've never heard that one, and I love it.
Oh, wow.
Love it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. And in many ways, it resonates with me as well personally. I quit my corporate job and for a while kind of really wasn't sure what to do and thought a lot more about, the obvious things to kind of pay the bills. Mm-hmm. And then as we were talking earlier, doing things like consulting isn't always the most rewarding thing to do unless you're lucky to work with great clients. And mm-hmm. I have a couple of clients that I really enjoy working with. And so that doesn't seem like work, but you can easily get sort of dragged down a path where you're totally unhappy with what you're doing. And being able to pursue things that you love to do is amazing. And I think I always feel very blessed when, anyone is in an opportunity to be able to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think as well that even some of the mundane things in life can be rewarding and make you come alive if you view them in a way that brings that about. It's a lot of it's about perspective and reframing.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so let's go back to where you started this business. I mean, 2004 is over a decade ago.
Yeah.
So long time back. And before you became a SaaS or software entrepreneur, you were a piano teacher, right?
Part-time. I was more a computer programmer. Chris got that detail a little bit wrong in the book, but I was both. Yeah. I started programming when I was 12, and I started teaching piano lessons when I was 16. So I had kind of always been doing both of those, but chose a career in computer science because, again, I knew it would pay the bills better. And so, yeah, I had about 10 piano students at the time, and I was going to school as for computer science in the evenings. And then also at some point, I can't remember exactly when it was, I got a programming job. I was still in college. But I had I'd made music teacher's helper by that point. I was working at an internet tech support company. That's what I was doing, making like $10 an hour. So.
Okay, so tell me a little bit about how you came up with the idea for this business.
Sure. So I was teaching my piano students, and often they would come to lessons and ask, how much do I owe you for next week, or for the lessons that I've had up to this month, or whatever. And I would have to take out my old Palm Pilot and look at how many lessons they've had, at which I recorded in a little text file, and count up the numbers and add up everything to figure out how much they owed and when their last payments were. And I just noticed that was taking like extra time at lessons that I didn't really want to spend on during the lesson. So I decided, well, maybe I could write a little app that will calculate that for me. I'll just put in when they come to their lessons, how much they pay, and it'll show me how much they owe at any moment. And so I did that, and it was really helpful. And then I made it available online with student logins so that they could log in from home and then see how much they owed. So then they wouldn't have to ask me at the lesson anymore. And then I made it so they could pay online through PayPal. And then they didn't even need to bring checks and stuff anymore. And then I of course, I added the scheduling in there, and it just kind of continued building in features until, it grew.
But you were building this for yourself, right? I mean, you hadn't started this out thinking I'm going to build a business and a product from this.
Exactly. It was all more kind of a hobby project for myself to kind of save myself time.
What technology were you using to build the app?
I wrote it in PHP. And I was pretty beginner at PHP, so it wasn't using a framework or anything like that.
And are you still building the product of PHP today?
We are, although it's had a few rewrites and is under a very serious, or very all-encompassing rewrite at the moment, including graphics design and everything. So, which should be finished early next year.
Cool. Okay, so you're starting to use this with your own students, and it's serving a purpose. At what point did you decide that you were going to turn this into a business?
Yeah, I was taking a class in college, and one of my friends suggested, why don't you take this idea and turn it into a business? And I'd kind of thought about it before, but never really taken the idea seriously. And I talked to other music teachers who I knew, and they were kind of excited about the idea and thought, yeah, I would use this if you made it available. And so I figured, well, why not? It wouldn't take much work to put a sign up form on there and, add another layer of complexity so other teachers can use it. And so that was it. I just decided to try it. And, it took several months, of course, to get to the point where I was comfortable launching it publicly. But yeah, and slowly got more customers, and it started to grow.
Do you remember how you got your first customer?
I don't.
Had you gone out and done some kind of outreach, or did you just wake up one day and somebody had signed up?
No, I mean, I did a few, marketing things. I think probably it was actually one of my very first customers. I don't know if it was the first one, but it was music teachers that I knew in the community, friends, were among the first signups. People I was telling about it in person.
Okay. And so what kind of marketing were you doing in the early days? I mean, was this just kind of, as you said, sort of talking to friends and family and letting them know about it, or were you doing any more than that?
It was word of mouth at first, but I tried a number of different things. I can't remember if AdWords was even around then, but I don't know if I was doing pay-per-click yet. I did put up like flyers in music stores, and then I went to music teacher conferences. They have kind of national and state level music teacher association conferences, and I would go to those, set up a booth, and hand out brochures and stuff like that there. And those were pretty effective. But most of our customers have always come from word of mouth. We have done a lot of online marketing and stuff since, but still word of mouth tends to be our number one referral source. So
you launched it in 2004.
Yeah.
What did that first year kind of look like? Was the product, do you sort of look back and feel like it was an immediate success in that first year?
Well,
no.
In a way, I mean, I didn't use any, I didn't use any money really to start this up, just my own sweat equity. So any profit was profitable. So we were profitable from day one, you could say. So in that sense, yes, it was a success. But like I said, growth was very slow. I don't remember how long it took, to get to certain levels. But I do remember, actually, I think it was around 2008. That's 4 years later, after 70 to 80 hour work weeks. Of course, I was in my spare time. That includes full-time job plus.
So you weren't working 70 to 80 hours on Music Teachers Helper.
I wasn't until I quit my job in 2008, and at that point I was making about $1,500 a month from Music Teachers Helper. So not much. And that's after 4 years. So it was very slow growth, and it took a lot of persistence and a lot of patience. But yeah, I figured, well, with $1,500 a month, I can get by, and I can do freelance web consulting on the side, etc. So I quit my programming job and worked full time on the business. And I think that is when it really started growing faster.
Okay, so it's two questions for you. One is, what kept you going with this product as a business if after 4 years you were only earning $1,500 a month, right? Because a lot of people would have just said, okay, maybe this isn't the business or the right business for me, and maybe I need to look at something else, because if after all of these years that's all I can generate from it, maybe that's it. Maybe that's as much as I'm ever going to get from this business. So what kept you going during those 4 years?
It's funny. It's the exact fact that I was making $1,500 a month. That was exciting to me. Well, when you think about it, I was only making, maybe $3,000 or $4,000 a month at my job anyway. So this was really adding to my income significantly. And I mean, even that first customer, I'm like, wow, I made something that people are willing to pay for. And if there's one person, if there's 10 people that are willing to pay for this, I mean, there's got to be thousands more with how many music teachers there are in the world. So let me keep getting the word out. This could really, and I think what motivated me more than anything was just the vision of having a business that would take care of my family financially, no matter what happened to me. That was my goal. That was my vision. Because my father-in-law had recently lost his job in the tech industry. He was working at Novell, I believe. He hadn't done anything wrong. They were just downsizing. And I realized, man, there is no such thing as job security in this industry. I don't really want to put my family in that kind of risk. So this business was, I saw a way out of that.
And that's interesting, because from what I understand, the way that you've built this business is kind of, it seems to me that you've tried to build it in a way that it will operate whether you're there or not.
Yeah, that's been the attempt.
And so what are some of the things that you've done to to try and make that happen? Because I think one thing that a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with is if they don't get out of bed and work 12 hours or something, nothing's going to happen, or that business is going to start struggling even more or fail. But that's not the case with you. So what have you done with your business to set it up for success, and I guess just automate big parts of it?
Yeah, automation is a huge part of it. I was constantly looking for tasks that I was doing over and over again, and try to find ways to make a process or a system or a piece of software that would just take care of that.
Give me one example of that.
Oh man, customers would write in with feature requests of what they wanted the software to do, and I would, of course, handle all of them individually, which was great, but trying to keep track of which ones were most popular. And I had like this big list of things, and I would kind of tally them up when people would write in with new features. And I realized this is kind of crazy. So eventually I found a software called uservoice.com, which allows customers to submit feature requests and then vote on them. So now I can easily sort the top voted items, and and there's comments, and I can communicate about each one with the customers, and it's a lot more efficient that way. So that's one example.
Okay, great.
And then in addition to automation, of course, I hired help, which is a big step, and also systematized some of the processes and things that I wanted them to help with. I made manuals for every person who was coming into the company to kind of say, this is how I've been doing things. If you have other suggestions for how to improve things, please let me know.
How many employees do you have?
Right now we have over 25.
And are they kind of just sort of geographically all over the place, or do you have sort of a hub, or how is it set up?
They're all over. I mean, this business has always been online, so we have no office anywhere, and everyone works from home. So all of my managers are in the States at the moment, as well as my UX designer, some of our support team, and let's say we've got a finance consultant guy in the UK, programmers in the Philippines and Eastern Europe, a couple of support people from the Philippines. Yeah, and not all of them are full-time. Most are probably part-time.
So I mentioned in the introduction that when Chris published the $100 Startup, you were doing almost $30,000 in monthly recurring revenue, or about $360,000 a year. Where is the business today?
Yeah, today we're doing roughly $70,000 a month.
Wow. 2016, is that the year that you think you're going to get to $1 million run rate?
It's very possible, yeah. We've got some huge changes coming, which I think are going to make a big difference.
Awesome. Okay, so let's go back to 2008. You said that growth had been really slow, and then you decided to sort of jump all in and start spending most of your time working on Music Teacher's Helper. What did you start doing differently, which sort of contributed to the growth of the business? Well,
first I had more time to put into the development of the product. So I was still spending a lot of time programming at that point. One of the main reasons I quit my job as well was because I was getting enough customers that there was so much I wanted to improve in the product, and I was spending all my time doing that, plus answering customer questions, plus the marketing, plus design stuff. And it was just so time consuming that I found myself like getting up early, staying up late, spending all my lunch break, and then maybe even a little bit of time doing like programming stuff at my job that was kind of, it would serve both sites. Yeah. And I'm like, I just can't keep going like this. This isn't maybe even ethical. So I decided to quit. And so besides programming, I also brought on help as soon as I could. So I think the first person I hired was a programmer. It's kind of a story, but I brought on a partner, a friend who wanted to kind of partner with me on the business, and he was a programmer as well. But it didn't really work out so well. It turned out that he had different ideas and directions for the company than I really wanted to take it, and he wanted to rewrite it in a different language and all sorts of stuff. And I thought, this isn't going to work. So fortunately, I put a contract in place early on where I could buy him out. So I lost a bit of money on that. choice, but eventually decided to hire some other programmers from the Philippines and elsewhere and train them, and that saved a lot of my time and also allowed me to kind of double, well, not quite double because there was a lot of training and checking and stuff like that at first, but it increased the productivity.
So did you sort of step back and stop coding at that point?
I didn't stop coding, I think, until 2010. I think at that point we were making like 12 grand a month, something like that.
And then you sort of just got to people working full time on the coding for you.
Yeah, I had like 2 or 3 or 4. I can't remember how many people.
I'm curious, did you struggle with letting go? I know when it comes to with a lot of technical founders, and I've been through it myself as well, is like when you build a product and you code it from scratch yourself, mm-hmm. It's really hard to let somebody else come in and screw around with it.
Oh, so hard. So hard. And not just with the programming, but also with like support, letting somebody else answer emails that, it's hard. That was one of the hardest challenges in the first few years of outsourcing, is just realizing that the people I hire may not, do things the same way I would do, but if I can let them do it in their own way, it's still going to be okay. It'll still work out. And yeah, that's been hard. But I think one thing that's really helped with that is learning to hire really good people up front who already kind of understand, my values and where I want to take things. Because at first I hired as cheap as possible, which is kind of where all I really could do at the time. And yeah, like I said, I spent a lot of time training and a lot of time fixing errors, and it was kind of frustrating in some ways. But there are a lot of people I have in my business now who are amazing. They're so much better at the tasks that I've hired them for than I ever would be. And so that's really helped as well.
The people that you currently have working with you, how long have they been around? Is turnover fairly low these days, or?
Yeah, it is fairly low. A lot of our developers are just contractors. We'll hire them for a few months here, and that's it, just for a specific task or part of the project. But who's been with us the longest? Well, probably the earliest are actually a couple of our support team members who have been with us probably for 8 years or more, 7, 8 years. Maybe not quite that long. But anyway, and what I did with support is actually quite interesting from the beginning, because I didn't have a lot of money to pay other people to do support. First, I tried to pay like some call center in India or something like that to handle it. But the quality they were putting in, it was awful. I couldn't handle it. I couldn't have my customer supported that way. So wow. I quickly dropped that. They just weren't listening. They weren't, and I even made up scripts for them to paste, but they didn't put any thought into it. So then I decided, well, who would do the best at supporting my customers? Who really understands music teachers? Who understands the software? My customers, of course. This is actually an idea from my mom, but she suggested I offer support position to my customers. So I wrote a blog post and I said, hey, if any of you want to help be on the support team for Music Teachers Helper, I'll give you a free Music Teachers Helper account, plus I'll pay you $1.50 per email that you answer. And I had a few people jump on that, and they have been amazing. They to this day, they're still our best support reps.
Wow.
And quite inexpensive as well, compared to like a full-time, dedicated call center kind of situation.
That's interesting. That's an interesting model to use. And I think your mom definitely gave you some great advice there. If you can find somebody who really, is supporting the product, but is also a user of the product, that's going to be like day and night compared to just going out there and hiring somebody from a call center and giving them some scripts.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's go back. So we talked about you going full time and what was sort of driving the growth then. And so you sort of talked about you had a lot more time to spend on developing the product and continuing to improve that. What else were you doing which helped to drive the growth? Like, were you going out and doing more marketing at that point?
I started doing national conferences, music teacher conferences, and I read lots of books and articles and just tried everything I could marketing wise to get the word out. Some things I found more effective than others. For example, in my industry, I tried some print ads in music teacher magazines, which I thought, well, that's really niche. It'll be great. But man, I'd spend $1,000 on an ad and get almost zero response from it that I could track.
Wow.
And it was pathetic. So I stopped doing that after like too many times of trying. It's funny because, as far as like marketing that's been effective, it's just, I think first of all, just having a great product has been the best thing because people will tell their friends about it. We also started an affiliate program to help, encourage and incentivize people to share the word. But it's funny because most of our customers still tend to just want to spread the word for free. The affiliate program is mostly used by businesses in the music industry who want to spread the word.
Okay, so I mean, even today, do you spend money on advertising or content marketing, or is it really just word of mouth is driving the growth?
No, we definitely spend money on marketing, and we always have. Yeah, and I guess I should say also, like, I did a lot of SEO stuff in the early days, and I paid someone to do like article marketing and comment on people's blogs and stuff like that before it was like kind of black hat. And now we're doing a lot of like partnerships. I have a marketing director who takes care of most of the marketing stuff, but for example, he'll find music teacher related podcasts and work out advertising deals with them or cross promotion arrangements and things like that have been helpful. Yeah, and of course, social media. It's funny. I would think that I speak about these things as if it's like, well, of course, this is just the normal stuff that everybody does, but maybe it's not. I don't know.
What has been one of the biggest challenges for you over the last decade of building this business? What sort of like was one of the hardest things that you wish you could go back and tell yourself when you started out in 2004?
I think patience it's been hard to be patient. And then dealing with burnout at a certain stage. I hit quite a period of just almost like, I don't want to do this anymore, even though I got it to the point where I was working like 5 hours a week on it. It was just the mental energy of knowing that I'm responsible for this and hoping that it's going to keep growing, and the emails that would come in and the decisions that had to be made and all of that. It was just emotionally taxing. And almost enough to the point where it made me want to sell it.
How long ago was that?
I would say maybe 2 years. No. Wait, that was almost like 3, 4. It's 2016 now. Almost 2016. Okay, so yeah, that was like 2011, 12 when it really hit.
And what was it? You just weren't enjoying what you were doing anymore?
I wasn't enjoying it. Yeah, I pretty much wasn't enjoying it.
And so, what did you do to get past that?
One thing I did that made a huge difference was I sent a survey to my customers, asking some really, I guess, some introspective questions to them, like, what do they enjoy about teaching? More than just my product, how do you like, what do you like about Music Teachers Help, or what don't you like? What would you improve? That type of stuff. But also, why do you teach lessons? What needs aren't being served in your profession? What can I help you overcome? The types of questions like that, or what are your greatest joys in teaching? How do you feel this or that? So a lot of those types of questions, and the answers I got back were so profound and really touched me too. Like, some of the teachers really shared some really cool things that helped me kind of refuel my passion. Seeing this business as, it's not just something that's making me money so that my family can travel the world, but it is something that is really serving a need in the music teacher community, and teachers are loving what the software is doing for them. And it's improving their lives in a lot of ways because they're less stressed, they have more time, they're connecting better with their students. And for me to just tap back into that idea of service and of seeing how my product was doing good in the world, that helped fuel some changes that I had been making in the business over the past few years to reshape it. We're pretty much rewriting the whole thing from scratch and taking everything we've learned in the past 10 years in business and along with a lot of these other things that teachers have suggested that they want and need and other things that I've noticed that they want to need that maybe they didn't state. And we're kind of putting it together in a lovely package gradually.
That's a really great story. And I think that, I think doing something like surveys or just engaging with your customers can be really powerful. And, I think for me, I have a personal example of that as well is, after I'd been doing the podcast for a little while, I sent out a survey asking people for some feedback on what they like, what they didn't like, what I could do better. And, up until that point, I'd been really sort of much more obsessed about, the download numbers and is that growing and all of that stuff. But what really got me fired up was the fact that people took the time to fill out the survey and, there was real people actually listening to the show who really cared enough to give you meaningful feedback, right? Mm-hmm. Things that they liked, but also things that they didn't like. And that for me was kind of like the moment where I was like, screw these, like all the things that people tell you about like downloads and all of that stuff. It's about really figuring out how to make a connection with people and delivering something that people actually care about. And that drives me a lot more than all that other stuff. So I completely get you on that. Okay, let's talk about life on the road while you run a business and some of the highs and lows that come with that. So I hear people, and I've met a number of people who've kind of gone down that route of traveling around the world while they run some kind of business. What has that experience been like for you and your family?
It's been fantastic and amazing in so many ways. And it's also been a challenge in others. So, office-wise, like I said, I work on the business itself, maybe 4 to 15 hours a week in a given week. But I do something usually on it every single day. So I rarely feel like I have a vacation from it. I could probably take one. I'm sure I could take off for a month and things would still be fine when I return. But for some reason, I just have trouble separating myself from it that much. It'd probably be really good for me to do. But that's something I haven't done yet.
What kind of things do you work on in those hours that you spend each week?
It depends on the week, but usually just the day-to-day maintenance stuff. Like I'll check an email. I'll check my email. Usually I'll have anywhere from 5 to 20 a day in the business because my managers are handling most of the other stuff. But it's mostly interaction with the management team, like approving a new design for a certain section of the website and writing some comments about what I want to see differently there, or making a suggestion on marketing, different marketing focus, or reading reports from my managers and commenting on those, that type of thing. So it's nothing too taxing generally, but there are a few things that are more involved. Some of the design stuff I have to think more about, but that's fun for me. I like the creative aspect. But then, the rest of my day, I still feel like it's so busy, even though maybe busy is not the right word because I'm doing things I enjoy. But right now, the past month or so, I've been spending a lot of time on my personal website, actually, pearceonearth.com. We just launched a redesign, and I'm trying to make some of the information that's on there more accessible because I've written for the past 10 years or so about, well, I guess it's only since 2009 or so when we started traveling, about, our whole lifestyle and business and travel and our spiritual journey and everything that we've gone through. But a lot of the content was really buried. So I'm kind of bringing it to the surface and reformatting some things. So that's been a fun project for me. And then, of course, I'll spend time playing with my kids. We'll go traveling. We'll go out every few days to go do some fun activity. And yeah, that's kind of what it's like. Now, as far as like office space and working, it's sometimes I don't really get an office right now. I'm in the laundry room down in the basement, the unfinished, laundry room with all the shelving and everything. So it's not the best circumstances, but at least I have a little desk and a chair, which is unusual. Sometimes I'll just be working on the couch or on the bed while the kids are running around. And so it's my Bose Quiet Comfort noise canceling headbuds are an essential piece of equipment for me working on the road. But yeah, it's different everywhere we go, and I never really know. Well, sometimes I know, but what type of what the living situations are going to be like, and that can have an effect on how efficiently I can work. If I can set aside 2 or 3 hours of focused time on something, I can get a lot more done than if I'm trying to work amidst everything else that's going on in the family. So,
and in the early days when you were traveling, you were still coding and doing everything for the business at that point, right?
When I started traveling, I was still doing a lot, but I didn't start traveling until we had outsourced a little bit. So I had help, and I wasn't doing everything. So yeah, I was still coding, but not as much.
You know, I see a lot of people who are sort of traveling around the world while they're running some kind of business or doing freelancing or things like that. But it's not so often you see somebody doing this with a young family. Do you have any advice for somebody with a family who maybe is thinking about doing something like this?
My advice would be, if you're thinking about doing it, give it a shot, because it's so much fun. The first time we did it, we didn't just jump and say, hey, let's sell our house and do this. We actually took 6 weeks in Panama first as kind of a temporary, let's try it out and see how we feel. And it was a life-changing trip for us. It was a different kind of trip than we take now. I actually planned everything in advance, and I booked all our hotels, and it was that kind of a trip at that point. But just spending 24 hours a day with our kids, which I wondered if we'd go crazy, we actually loved it, and we bonded so much. And being able to see the world through the kids' eyes was eye-opening. And walking down the path and having them point out little things and stopping and just taking life slower as well. It just made such a difference to how we felt and how we lived and how we connected as a family. Yeah, I'd say do it.
How have you sort of dealt with, a lot of people might have concerns about security. Is it safe for me to go out there and travel to all these countries with my kids and healthcare and all of that stuff? How have you guys dealt with that?
I think those are funny concerns. If you're talking about coming from the States, I think a lot of places in the States are much more dangerous and have much worse healthcare than elsewhere in the world. But yeah, we felt so safe pretty much everywhere we've gone. There have been a few issues. Like I once saw a guy getting beat up in the streets of Quito, Ecuador, and the police standing around not doing anything about it, stuff like that. But I wasn't with my kids at the time. I was out on my own. But yeah, most of the time, and we got robbed in Costa Rica, which wasn't so fun. But this is the kind of stuff that can really happen in any major city. Mm. And yeah, I think a lot of the fear of the dangers out there are really overhyped. And maybe statistically there are more murders or more this or that in a certain city, which is something to take into consideration when you're choosing a place to go. But a lot of that stuff, like a lot of the crimes in Mexico, for example, would be drug related, and you're not really going to see them unless you're involved in the drug scene there. A lot of them. So I don't know. I'm not so concerned about that. And we stay close to each other. There have been times we let our kids go wander off in different places, but it's usually when we kind of know the landscape and maybe even know some people around. Yeah, and staying in a place long enough to get to know the community a little bit is another helpful tip, I think, because it's deepened our experience when we've done that.
Because when you go to a place, you don't kind of go out and stay in touristy places, right? You kind of find a way to embed yourself in whatever community you're in. That's
right. Well, it depends on where we go. We're going to be going, like I said, to New Zealand in January, and we booked one house for 3 months there in Nelson on the north tip of the South Island. And we hope to meet people in the community there and get involved in classes and activities. And we like to connect with the homeschooling communities where we go, especially. But on the way to Fiji, or on the way to New Zealand, we'll be stopping in Fiji because the flight went through there anyway, and it was just as cheap. But we'll just do 2 weeks, and that'll be more of a touristy trip. But we're going to try to get some sponsorships there for hotels which we're just starting to do. We did it in Mexico with a food tour, got a free food tour for blogging about it and sharing it on social media and stuff. So that's been helpful.
Nice.
To cover some of the costs. Yeah.
That's very creative. Well, it sounds like a blast. All right. It's time for our lightning round. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I'd like you to answer them as quickly as you can. You ready?
All right. See how we do.
All right. What's the best piece of business advice that you ever received?
Probably just to get started. Just the idea that my friend said, why don't you take that program you wrote and turn it into a business? Because it was an opportunity that was already there, something I was already interested in. The incentive to and the courage to put it out there.
What book would you recommend to our audience and why?
Besides like the 4-Hour Workweek and $100 Startup and those type of books, I recently read one called The Empathy Factor by Marie Mirashiro, and it's about using nonviolent communication in the workplace. And that has been really helpful for me to kind of look not only at my work relationships and really understanding the needs of the people I'm working with on my team, but also my customers and myself. And I really like the nonviolent communication philosophy. Marshall Rosenberg is the founder of that, if you haven't heard of it.
What's one attribute or characteristic in your mind of a successful entrepreneur?
Definitely persistence, dedication. Commitment to see that vision and be able to push toward it through the obstacles and the emotional barriers that come up.
What's your favorite personal productivity tool or habit?
I love journaling. I write every morning and night about what I'm grateful for, what I'm doing during the day, what I want to do, what I accomplished, and how I want to feel, that type of thing. Really helpful for me.
Do you do that on paper or on your computer?
I do it on the computer. I have a Google Docs file that I just put the date and then I start writing. And then I usually do like categories of gratitude and how I want to feel and what I'm going to do and that type of thing. And then at the end of the day, actually on my phone, I do a daily summary where I kind of summarize what I did that day. Also, sometimes I have a log. I keep a log like every time I switch tasks or every hour or two, I'll just write the time and then make a note of what I did in the last couple hours just to help keep me on task and help me remember.
I'm going to steal that idea from you and start to implement that because I've tried journaling in the past. And to be honest, I didn't really see the benefits until I stopped doing it. Now I kind of think about it and I was like, oh yeah, it did used to be better. And even simple things like, you can go through, I'll go through a week and I'll look back and go, oh my God, it feels like I wasted the whole week. What did I do? Right?
Yes.
And then you start to break it down and go, well, no, actually I did this or I did that. And sometimes they aren't actually tangible things. Maybe it's, I don't know, I got time to go and have lunch with my wife, which we never get to do. It's those kinds of things that when you kind of put them all together and sort of look back over a day or a week, it kind of really helps you appreciate, things that maybe you take for granted on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, if you want to go even deeper with it, I've tried this a couple times, but using a tool like Slim Timer, or there's probably better ones these days. But I tracked every second of every day for an entire week.
Whoa.
It was so enlightening. And then I wrote a couple blog posts. You can find them on my blog, How I Spend My Time and How I Spend My Time Now. I think Tim Ferriss even guest blogged one of those on his post, on his blog. But it's I categorize how much time I spent in each how much time I spent in each category throughout the week, and it was really interesting to see. Wow, it helps show you what you value, I guess.
I'll include a link to that in the show notes.
Cool.
What's a crazy business idea or a new idea that you'd love to pursue and build as a business if you had the extra time?
It's funny because I actually started one, and I may pick it up eventually later. But it's a folding digital piano. So I love playing the piano, but often when we travel, I don't have one. So sometimes I'll rent one, but it's kind of a pain. I'd love to just have one all the time. So I woke up with a dream one day of a 88 key, full size, high quality digital stage piano that folds into thirds and packs into carry-on luggage. And
wow.
Hired some engineers, got started on it, said I'm going to spend $20,000, get this to the point where we can launch a Kickstarter, etc. But I'd never done a physical product before, and I was not physically present for any of the work. And my electronics engineer actually ended up passing away from cancer, and we lost all of the stuff that he'd worked on. And then my mechanical engineer moved. And so anyway, it was kind of a disaster project. And I'm kind of back to square one now with it. So, but someday, maybe, if I get the nerve up again, I may pursue that one again.
It sounds like an intriguing idea. What's an interesting or fun fact about you that most people don't know?
I had heart surgery when I was 2 weeks old and barely survived.
Wow.
Yeah, it freaks my
I don't know what
out.
to say to that. Oh, well, glad you're still here.
Yeah,
and finally, I think I know the answer to this, but what is one of your most important passions outside of your work?
Wow, just creativity in general, I would say. I love music. I love photography. I love writing. Of course, travel as well. All those things.
Awesome. Brandon, thank you for joining me. It's been a pleasure talking to you, and I've really enjoyed kind of helping to share your story with Music Teachers Helper and the amazing life that you're living with your family and traveling around the world. Now, if people want to find out more about Music Teachers Helper, they can go to musicteachershelper.com.
That's right.
And if they want to find out more about you and your travels, they can go to pearceonearth.com. Right. And I'll include the links to both those sites in the show notes. If folks want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
They can just go to pearceonearth.com and go to the contact form and shoot me a message that way.
Great. Brandon, thanks again. I'm going to continue to follow you. It's kind of really been funny. Like, I kind of read about you back in, it was almost 4 years ago. I've listened to the $100 Startup on Audible a number of times. I've kind of been on your blog and kind of following what you've been doing from time to time. So I'm really glad we had the chance to finally do this. So, thank you. I really mean thank you very much for joining me today. And I wish you and your family all the best with wherever you go. And I hope the business continues to grow. And, please do ping me when you hit the magic $1 million mark. That's going to be a huge milestone. And
thank you, Omar. I appreciate that. It's great visiting with you today.
Great. Thanks, Brandon. Cheers.
Cheers.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Brandon Pearce of musicteachershelper.com. You can get to the show notes for this episode by going to conversionaid.com/104. And don't forget to check out the ConversionAid community. If you haven't done that, just go to conversionaid.com/VIP and enter your email address there to join. Thanks for listening. Until next time, take care.
Thanks for listening to ConversionAid, the podcast that shows you how to take your business to the next level and create software that sells. But things don't have to end here. Head over to conversionaid.com/VIP and get yourself on the free VIP list where we share special insider content and news about upcoming episodes. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you next time.